focus over to Pakistan, because Pakistan and the United States have held a high-level meeting in Davos. What was the agenda? They both focused on Gaza and a broader security cooperation. In fact, in exclusive inputs brought to us by our Security Affairs Editor Manoj Gupta, what we are being told is that the Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir told US officials that Pakistan is prepared to deploy troops as part of an international stabilization force for Gaza. The signing on the margins of the World Economic Forum has triggered a fierce political firestorm back in Islamabad, with opposition parties labeling Sharif's move as non-transparent and morally indefensible. Here's what's happened so far. Pakistan has offered to consider contributing troops reportedly up to 3,500, but has set strict conditions. Islamist groups and top clerics have in fact now warned against this deployment. They call it a sellout to Western interests and forces. Pakistan has refused to participate in disarming of Hamas, which, as we all know, is a terror outfit, stating that this is a Palestinian responsibility. Clerics view this as potentially legitimizing Israeli occupation. In the CNN News 18 exclusive, here's what we have learned about what's happening in Pakistan domestically. Pakistan's decision to join Trump's Board of Peace has sparked backlash. PTI is making it extremely difficult for the government to manage the national narrative. The Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf is in fact saying that no plan should contradict Palestinian wishes. Joining the peace board, which is US-centric, will sideline the issue of Palestine. Opposition in Pakistan has dubbed the government's move as morally incorrect and indefensible. So, as far as Gaza is concerned, can Pakistan manage its domestic consensus in its race to appease the US president? That's the question we are taking forward with our guests. I'm joined in by Tara Kartha, who will be joining us in just a bit. All right, so joined in by Tara Kartha, former director of NSCS, Prabhu Dayal, who's a former diplomat. Thank you both for joining in. Ambassador Dayal, if I could bring you in on the kind of domestic narrative that's playing out, if I may bring to your notice what Fazlur Rahman had to say. He said that when Quaid-e-Azam had founded Pakistan, this was the founding principle of Islam, that they're not going to be supporting the issue of Israel or the cause of Israel, which was in fact based on the Jewish tenet. And this support now being lent to the Board of Peace is against the Islamic tenet itself.
Yes, you're right. You know, Pakistan is navigating a complex Gaza conundrum that balances deeply rooted public support for Palestine and Pakistan's commitment to Islamic values with the strategic necessity of maintaining close relations with the United States and securing financial aid. Pakistan is having to make a high-stakes decision regarding Donald Trump's request to deploy troops for the proposed international stabilization force for Gaza. Now, this move is seen as critical for maintaining Pakistan's standing within a transactional relationship with the Trump administration. Deployment of the troops is viewed as a way to secure US investment, security aid, and favorable treatment from the IMF. However, as you pointed out, the decision faces significant internal opposition, as the international stabilization force will have the task of disarming Hamas. Now, critics in Pakistan argue that this aligns Pakistan too closely with Israel. Now, opposition parties such as Imran Khan's party, the PTI, and the Jamaat-e-Ulama-Islam have slammed the government for following Trump's diktat and potentially operating alongside Israel on the Board of Peace. And experts warn that an unpopular deployment could trigger domestic rebellion given the high level of public support for Gaza in Pakistan.
Right.
I
want to quickly bring in Tara also on that note, Ambassador. Hold on to your thoughts. Tara, is this whole rush and this race to appease the US president finally weighing in on the Pakistani establishment, given that it's not just this Board of Peace where the opposition parties are referring to the presence of the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu as a butcher of Palestine being in a board which is being supported by Pakistan, but it's also the strategic silence which was maintained, especially when reports were indicating that US, in fact, not just reports, the US president himself indicated that he was considering kinetic action against Iran, and Pakistan may perhaps aid the US to conduct it.
It's, I mean, just to take off from what Ambassador said, I mean, there's been the parliament is saying, how could you do such a thing without even consulting us? I mean, which is a very legitimate point you're raising, right? I mean, this is, as you said, a complete move away from what Jinnah had talked about Israel, etc. They don't even consult the parliament.
Is this the new face of Pakistan after the 27th Amendment?
Exactly. This is them, Asim Munir doing his thing. And we had apparently this is what they reported, that the Prime Minister was pointing out Asim Munir in the audience. I don't know if that's true. But what the point is, there is not sufficient opposition. I mean, where are the million-strong protests that we saw on Palestine for the last so many months before, Asim Munir went to Washington and had his nice lunch with Trump? Before that, for months together, Pakistan was one of the worst hit in terms of Palestine protests. How come they've suddenly stopped? That tells you something about who's controlling this. It's so right now, all he's got PTI, which we knew would oppose it. We've got Maulana Fazlur Rahman, who says this is a betrayal. But it's not anything Asim Munir can't handle. If indeed we've been hearing rumors, I mean, more than rumors, probably reports of possibly US forces, not troops, already in Pakistan. This is clearly, he believes he can handle this. I mean, where is the TLP? Tehreek-e-Insaf Pakistan, which was out on the streets, they're all quiet.
That's a very valuable point that you've just now raised. Ambassador Dayal, is this not the end of any form of democracy in Pakistan? And when you have, say, the JUIF and even the TLP, if they get down to mobilizing these cadres on the street, the religious sentiment, you can imagine the kind of anger that's going to now come out on the streets itself. What could this pose for the Pakistani establishment?
No, first of all, let me state that Pakistan has never really had democracy. When I served in Pakistan, it was under the rule of Ziaul Haq.
Right, that's true. But Ambassador, so far there was a lid placed on this kind of extremist fervor, which is now eventually going to boil down on the streets as well.
Well,
because that's what Fazlur Rahman has said. He said that he's going to galvanize the cadres and bring them now to the streets only to protest for a two-state solution for Palestine.
There is every likelihood that there would be an outpouring of Islamic fervor onto the streets of Pakistan. This should not be unexpected by the Pakistani authorities. They should be prepared for it because of the fact that what Pakistan is doing by aligning itself alongside Trump's policies in regard to Gaza runs totally counter to what the Pakistani people view as their Islamic commitment to Palestine. There is every likelihood that although Pakistan is saying that it will not take part in the disarming of Hamas, the fact remains that once it gets involved, it will come under increasing pressure from the Trump administration to do as they want it to. And once Pakistani forces are in Gaza, how do the people within Pakistan come to know what those forces are doing and what they are not doing? They will be following American orders.
Tarak, quick closing thoughts on why this is just not going to be a problem for the domestic politics of Pakistan, but for the world over, given that Israel has already raised its objections to, say, the presence of not just Pakistan, but even Turkey as part of the Board of Peace, even Qatar, because we all know who all are actively aiding the terror infrastructure in the world today, especially when Pakistan has vowed to not, in fact, come out with, say, forces which will ensure the disarmament of Hamas?
I think they did a very smart thing. I mean, there was all those rumors about, which I don't know if it's true, the Hamas leaders, there were photographs of Hamas leaders in Pakistan. So immediately Israel turned around and said, we don't want Pakistan troops. I mean, Asim Munir would like to have his cake and eat it too. Ideally, that's what he wants, right? So he will stand by Trump, he will applaud, and he will talk about the Nobel Peace Prize, but he would much, much rather not send his troops out there. So if, just saying this last line, if tomorrow there are huge protests against this, I will assume that this is the state has allowed it, because so far there's been nothing.
Okay, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, your closing thoughts. First of all, do weigh in on what you make of this Board of Peace, where you're expecting $1 billion over here for permanent membership. Not to forget, many have also questioned if this is now going to challenge the authority of the UNSC, and is this also, creating an alternate multilateral framework for future global conflicts. And you never know when the US president may shift his attention from Gaza over to Kashmir or the other 8 conflicts that he boasts of having mediated.
Well, this Board of Peace is a total sham. And that is why some of America's closest allies, like the UK, France, and Germany, have decided not to join it. They have openly expressed their view that this so-called Board of Peace will be doing something which is the legitimate right and the duty of the United Nations. And Trump has some animosity towards the United Nations, and it says that the UN never helped him, and therefore he wants to set up this parallel body. But this parallel body can never come into existence. It has the support of a few autocrats and dictators, like the rulers of Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, UAE, and the president of Egypt, and some others who are autocrats. So it's likely to become a club of autocrats, but it will never enjoy the support of genuine democracies. And of course, India has a tough decision to make, because on the one hand, Trump would like India to do as it
Perhaps the US could begin this second phase of the peace plan by questioning Pakistan. What is the meaning of its presence in this peace board if it's not going to support the disarmament of a terrorist outfit like Hamas? We'll have to leave it at that. Many thanks to you, Tara and Ambassador Dayal, for joining in on this discussion. And that's all I have for you in this edition of Plain Speak. Thank you so much for watching.